Hello, BookTube. I have a Wednesday MegaStuff video for you here. A bunch of little bits and pieces that don't really make a whole video on their own, but that they can go into a kind of amalgam video. And we will, of course, start off with babies. I put out a call for pictures of your Shakespeare, because September is Shake-Tube. And I mentioned that you should feel free to include pictures of your dogs as well, and plenty of you have. Plenty of you have. Dogs haven't been the only animals that have been featured. I've got a gallery of wonderful babies to show you. I want to make sure the lighting works. Here's number one. Look at that. I'll go so far as to say that both of those animals are fairly cute. And then look at this. Look at that. Oh, look at that face. Oh my. And then we have this little dog, who is posing with, oh, I just noticed how filthy this iPad is. Well, you'll have to live with it. You probably can't see it with the glare. This dog is posing with a collection of Shakespeare. There we have some great books, those leather-bound great books. We've seen a few of those in this parade. We have a play in the background there, and a bunch of No Fear Shakespeare. An invaluable teaching tool. I don't know how many of you be familiar with them, or some variation of them, where you've got Shakespeare's text on one side and a modern language English translation of that text on the other side to walk you through it. They are the favorite target of literary snobs, and always have been. I have gone 10 rounds with literary snobs like that over the decades. It was this is No Fear Shakespeare, but there have been others that did projects like this, and the criticism of them is indefensible. The snob critics will say, well, you know, if you give a student the plain text on the one side, they'll never even pay attention to what Shakespeare actually wrote on the other side, and they'll miss all the beauty and all the power of it. And my first point in rebutting those literary snobs was always, okay, do you have any proof of that? If you're a literary snob who also, God forbid, is a teacher of young people, have you ever actually seen that to be true? Do you have any proof that that happens? None of them ever did. None of them ever will. This is the perfect way to get young students or older students. This is the perfect way to get people to look at the power and grace of Shakespeare's verse and his prose, is to take the sting of the mysticism out of it, to let them know what he's actually talking about. They're invaluable, and this dog looks a little over it, and we're going to see that gets a little bit worse. Now the dog is trying to sleep with all the Shakespeare dutifully lined up right there, and then finally the dog has just had enough. Get off my couch. Very, very nice. And we also we'll finish up with someone that this is the Royal Shakespeare Company, the big trade paperback, the one that one of you sent me, that I have been just using the daylights out of, and the person who sent this picture generously says that if it's any consolation to me, the creature in the picture identifies as a dog. Look at that face. And then the foot and the maybe a Chromebook in the background is given for horrifying scale. The sender tells me that this creature identifies as a dog. Okay, I'll give it a pass for now. It doesn't look like a dog, but if it acts like one, oh, so much the better. And that is your cavalcade of babies for today. Keep them coming. I am enjoying it. I can't believe it took me years to come up with this idea of people sending me dog pictures. That is just, it's so self-evident. I'm amazed it took me this long to think about it. And then we can move on to another MegaStuff item, and that is a tech update. This is a crappy-looking channel filmed on an iPhone by a guy who's 2,792 years old. The background never changes. There's no music. There's no editing. There are no title cards. There's nothing like that. And yet, there are tech updates on this channel. And the latest tech update, I have mentioned that I am contemplating a new tech purchase. Because thanks to the nature of 2020 and the concentration on ebooks instead of printed books because of the plague, I've been getting tons more ebooks and doing a lot more electronic book reading. A lot more. Even stuff that isn't ebooks. That isn't for review. And that has naturally raised the question of storage. Ebooks take up space. They accumulate. And the problem with my beloved iPads, I have a whole bunch of iPads, and the problem with them is that they have fixed storage. iPad does not allow you to put in a memory disk of any kind to increase your internal storage. You're stuck with what you have. I didn't even know what the internal storage on most of my iPads were until this year, when suddenly I had a reason to look at it and know what it was. And some of it's abysmal, just tiny. In fact, ironically enough, I don't think I have it here, but ironically enough, my 10-year-old iPad version 2, my second generation iPad, a very old machine, has one of the largest amounts of storage of any iPad that I have. And that has led me to wonder about ways to get around that. The natural way that Apple proposes is that you upload everything to the Google Cloud. I don't want to do that. So instead, I have been faced with the prospect of buying a new iPad, something with a vast amount of storage, a terabyte of storage, something like that. I won't bump my head on that ceiling for a long time. But one of you pointed out that there is another device. There is a device that can function as an external memory drive for an Apple product, an iPad, an iPhone, something like that. And it's this. It's a SanDisk. It's manufactured by SanDisk. And it's a SanDisk external memory drive for an Apple product. Now, I don't know if you can make this out. That is the standard thumb drive. The thing that very conspicuously does not have a port on any Apple product. And then this, which is it's a very stiff hinge there, this is a lightning port. And that's how it works. You take an iPad, you see, which has no thumb drive port anywhere on it, and you take the lightning port as if you were going to charge it. You stick that in there like that. That wraps up along the side, and suddenly you have, this is 128 gigs. Suddenly it will form a connection with the machine and ask you to download the SanDisk app, the pairing app for the device itself, and give you access to moving all sorts of stuff from your iPad onto this little SanDisk drive. I thought that is fantastic. That is exactly the solution that I need. So I ordered one of these, and I got it, and I was trying it out for a while and came to a somewhat horrifying initial conclusion. I'm not sure if it'll stay true, but initially it looks like this will only store stuff that is actually on the iPad. So if you're one of those people that just can't ever get rid of a picture, or that has a ton of videos on your iPad, or something like that, if you've got loaded stuff like that on your iPad, all of that will show up to transfer onto this, but not content in apps, and not side-loaded content. So at least initially, right now, at first blush, it looks to me very disappointingly like this thing will not accept ebook files that I have on, for instance, my Kindle app or my Nook app, that it won't accept them. I might be able to move them over, but it won't open them. It won't be able to recognize them or read them. I'm thinking there are probably ways around that. I'm thinking that this is a teachable device. I think a lot of work went into it, so I'm not giving up by any means, but the dream I had of it suddenly and instantly solving my storage problems, that's gone. that's not there. So instead, whatever use this thing will end up being, and it might end up doing exactly what I want it to do. So far, it has not. I have tried to transfer books from the Nook app, and it didn't work. I've also downloaded some ebooks directly to the desktop of my iPad and thought, well, maybe you should do that. Maybe if you're just uploading straight from the iPad, that will work. And it appeared to, but when the files showed up on the SanDisk file, it couldn't open them. It couldn't read them. And I don't know quite why that is. I don't know. That strikes me as something that maybe I could teach either the iPad or the SanDisk drive how to overcome. That doesn't strike me as a brick wall. So I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna continue to experiment with that. But in the meantime, since that was a bit of a disappointment, it immediately threw me back to thinking about earlier solutions. Specifically, one earlier solution: to buy a newer iPad that I specifically buy for its enormous storage. Ideally a terabyte of storage, so that, realistically speaking, I'm not going to fill it. Since I don't do anything else, all that we'd be talking about here is books. We wouldn't be talking about videos, or games, or movies, or anything like that. We'd just be talking about books, so I think a terabyte would suit me just fine. But a number of you have suggested, in the meantime, that rather than worry about that, why don't I switch out of the Apple ecosystem entirely? Why don't I get an Android device that has expandable memory? They do have little gateways where you can put a drive in and expand your memory as much as you want, and you can keep doing it. And there are apparently Samsung and a whole bunch of other Android devices are really good. Their tablets are really good. And that has me thinking, but uh, I have a few reservations. One, I have never found the Android operating system particularly intuitive to use. I've had some Android devices in the past, and I've often ended up fighting with them, more often than I wanted. And the other reservation is this. This is my Amazon Kindle Fire 10-inch. I'm just noticing that all of my touchscreen devices are filthy, but that is a testament to the fact that I use these things all the time. All the time. As I was mentioning yesterday, I think it was, I started to notice that I am using smart tablets far more often than I'm using my laptop, as just a raw percentage of the daily use. This thing is an Amazon Kindle. It came with the Kindle App Store, and I hacked it as a minimal, very easy thing to do, where you can get around that, where you can strip, I'll modify that skin so that you can import the Google Play Store onto this device and get all the apps, not just the Kindle App Store variants and zombies of those kinds. I did that, and I thought, okay, I got this device specifically because of an Android device's expandability of memory. I got this thing, and I got a huge memory card that I put in the top of it. Well, that's the bottom of it. I put it in the top of it. I put the memory card in there with a huge amount of space. I thought that will solve your problem. You'll just download all of your ebooks onto this thing from now on, and you'll never run out of storage. And I hit a problem, because I like to use the Nook app, and this machine doesn't, even on the new kind of version that I have of it, it doesn't recognize them at all. It doesn't open those books. I had to go to other ebook readers. I found a few, quite a few. If you suggested quite a few of them, I found a few of them that worked just fine. But it gave me the willies. It gave me the willies because it seemed a little bit arbitrary. I mean, if it's the Google Play Store and I'm uploading the Nook app and I'm uploading an ebook and I've got it right there and I'm transferring it to the Nook app, why wouldn't it work? And yet it doesn't. That spooked me just a little, and that won't happen with an Apple product. That I know. It won't happen with an Apple product. So now I'm on the fence. I had not even thought about researching Android devices, and now I am. So your tech update is that everything's up in the air. This was meant to solve everything, and I don't think it's going to. Maybe it will. I'll work on it, but maybe it won't. And if it doesn't, I'm going to need one tablet to rule them all. And will it be an Android? That idea had not occurred to me. So now I'm doing an extra ton of research. And I guess the typically American approach to this problem, that I might end up taking, although I can hear some of you yelling already, would be to just buy both. just get a new iPad and get a Samsung Galaxy Tab and have them both, and then you'll see. Then you'll know what you want. But I have been strictly informed by quite a few of you that if I reach 10 tablets, you're cutting me off. And I don't want that. I don't want to be told I can't buy any more tech. And I'm halfway there to 10 more. Two more tablets would be exorbitant. So I don't know. Now I'm researching both. I have sort of ruled out the iPad Pro. That was originally on my mind because it seemed like a rock solid machine, but it looks like it's over-engineered for my needs. The only problem being that with the iPad Pro, one of the options is a 12.9-inch screen display. And the more I think about that, the more I like it. I was thinking it's not practical, it's hard to protect, that sort of thing, but I don't bring my iPads anywhere except from room to room. So, and that larger screen real estate is mighty attractive. For all the other stuff, for the non-reading stuff I do on an iPad, I don't know. One way or another, that's your tech update, is that everything is up in the air. I am now researching Android and Apple. But in addition to that, we have mail. We have an odd assortment of mail. For instance, we have the fall books issue of the New York Review of Books. Big, thick, jammed issue that I got it in the mail and immediately thought of there's a tiny but vocal handful of you out there who really want me to do a deep dive on these literary journals, the TLS or the New York Review of Books, and I've worried that it's just not good content, to use the horrible YouTube phrase, that it's not going to be very interesting. And I read this issue. I really liked it. I thought we'd go through just a little bit of it, maybe not a deep dive, but just a little bit of interesting bits here and there. The reviews were all over the place. In terms both of quality and of the books they're reviewing. So I read them all, but I can't say I read them all with the exact same amount of devotion. So I'll take you to the ones that really, really interested me. Like, for instance, there is Anne Dybel, reviews Too Much and Never Enough by Mary Trump, a book that I have reviewed on my podcast. I have do a podcast for the Cedarburg Public Library. I leave the link to that down below. I gave it a brief review. I do reviews on the podcast, and it was a scathing review. And this review by Untitled is almost certainly going to be the longest and most lovingly detailed review this book gets. It's scrupulously intelligent, beautifully written. And running underneath it is the reviewer's contention that that is much the same as mine, that this author is making stuff up, that she's basically lying, which was my first and lasting second impression of the book. And at one point, the reviewer says, Mary Trump's unaccountable narrative omniscience about the mental state of her main characters has a certain parallel in her handling of factual niceties. A substantial portion of the book concerns events of which she has no first-hand knowledge. Some of these stories are new, and most of the salacious ones made their way onto listicles as soon as the book was released. But many are recycled from material that is already public. Curiously, when her stories are at variance with previously published versions, she does not note or explain the differences. And I don't know this reviewer, but I believe that is a nice, gentle way of saying that she's making it up. That she's making a lot of stuff up, and that was certainly my own impression. Then we have here. There's a nice long piece here by Jerome Groopman on plague years by Ross Slaughton. We saw this book on this channel. It's an AIDS doctor's memoir of living through the worst of the AIDS epidemic. And Groopman ends his review with an ominous note about that AIDS epidemic. It says, perhaps the greatest lesson we can take from the AIDS epidemic is one that came after the movie star Rock Hudson died, effectively removing the blinders that President Reagan was wearing. Reagan, a friend of Hudson, at last ceded authority to scientists like Dr. Fauci, who was involved, who knew how to speak to the public about illness and create a sense of common cause, and to mobilize both the public and private sectors to triumph over a virus that had never been seen before and many believed could not be effectively combated. AIDS arrived as a murderer. Now it can be shackled. We are nowhere near that point with COVID-19. And listen to what you just heard. Notice the implication. There's a silent implication there, but you are, I believe that Groopman intends you to hear it, even though he cannot say it. And that is the final foot of the syllogism. That AIDS was really bad, that Rock Hudson died of it, that Ronald Reagan took it seriously once that happened, that COVID is really bad, that Donald Trump doesn't take it seriously, and the silent part of that comparison is that maybe he would if somebody he knew died of it. Somebody close to him died of it. Or even maybe the government would take it seriously if he died of it. It was, at least for me, it was impossible not to hear that final thing. And to wonder if it's true. It was a really good piece. And then, as is the way with the New York Review of Books, there was explicitly political coverage that doesn't review anything except political events. And this is by Fintan O'Toole, who reviews the Democratic National Convention, which was done virtually. There were no suicidal crowds in the middle of a pandemic. It was all done with speakers on screens. Joe Biden accepted the nomination. His wife spoke. Michelle Obama spoke. President Obama spoke. A bunch of other people spoke. It made for good viewing and not disturbing fascist viewing like the Republican National Convention, where Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend, Kimberly Guilfoyle, will always have a minor footnote in history for the utterly deranged speech that she gave. But in addition to that, every other speaker, they just lied continuously, just endless lying, of factually disprovable lying. Not, I don't like this guy and I don't believe his claims, but this didn't happen. That didn't happen, and you're claiming that it did. So it wasn't, the Democratic National Convention wasn't nearly as disturbing. But Fintan O'Toole does an expert breakdown of what for many people was the highlight of that convention, which was the speech by Barack Obama about Donald Trump. I want to see if I can get a manageable amount here. Certainly it is hard to imagine a more comprehensive display of pure disdain by a former president for his successor than Barack Obama's masterly speech to the convention. Without a presence of a physical audience, and with the speaker facing the camera directly, his facial expressions were magnified into a new kind of visual eloquence. Darwin noted that one of the primary gestures of contempt is a movement of the mouth that appears to graduate into one closely like a smile. Obama signaled the beginning of his attack on Trump with a cold little laugh. In the middle of his lacerating put-down of Trump, Obama paused and blinked slowly 4 times, a perfect counterpoint in Semaphore to the brutally laconic summary of a presidency too disagreeable to behold. And here we quote Obama. He's shown no interest in putting in the work, no interest in finding common ground, no interest in using the awesome power of his office to help anyone but himself and his friends, no interest in treating the presidency as anything but one more reality show that he can use to get the attention he craves. But then Fintan O'Toole turns the tables just a little. It's very good. The scorn was magnificent, but it signaled an awareness that Trump, even in his absence, was powerfully present. Obama was implicitly alluding to a truth that everyone knows but that cannot be openly articulated at a party convention, that the Democratic ticket is not Biden-Harris, it is Trump-Biden-Harris. Very much in that order. The Democratic candidates are primarily defined by what they are not. They are not Trump. The path of the 2020 campaign is to be a via negativa. Each of those clauses in Obama's deadly characterization of the incumbent begins with no, planting the idea that Trump is a nothing and that a Biden presidency will be the nullification of this non-entity, a double negative that makes a positive. And O'Toole goes on to stress the funereal aspects of the Democratic National Convention. There's a bit of that that's undeniably true. Joe Biden there's a bit of a funereal aspect to him. He doesn't need much prompting to talk about the tragedies that have marred his life. But very thought-provoking political commentary in a way that the New York Review of Books doesn't always provide. And then there was also a multi-book review of Eileen Gray, the artist and architect Eileen Gray. There was a book of hers came out by Thames and Hudson called Eileen Gray, Her Life and Work. I think I reviewed it for somebody. And I think I did a good job of hiding my disdain for this figure, who is completely talentless, and who produced a very small number of very ugly objects, whether they're small or whether they're architectural. This picture is a house that Eileen Gray designed. Isn't it lovely? Is it a house? Or did your 3-year-old drop his Lego? I don't know, one way or another. Isn't it lovely? Look at the bare pylons. Look at the ugly steps that will kill you if you will go down them in the ice. Look at that porch that looks out on nothing and is not pretty. Look at the absence of windows. Isn't she a great architect? But the piece is by Martin Filler, and it was very good. Regardless of what I think about the subject matter, it was very good. There's also people like Catherine Hughes on those two new Wordsworth biographies that we saw. Very good piece. A little bit soft. You can have a soft review that's very good. She clearly isn't out to savage either of those books. They're both very, very good. So it'd be hard for her to do that. Ruth Franklin writes about Amor McBride's Strange Hotel and has a very good comparison with The Lesser Bohemians. But a person who is deep in the thick of a love affair cannot see beyond it. More than that, the affair becomes the engine that gives life meaning. The narrator of The Lesser Bohemians and her lover metaphorically restore each other to life. The novel does not use their names until they declare their love, as if love itself were naming them. The situation in Strange Hotel is the heartbreaking reverse. A woman who has put sex into a box and shut the lid, opening it only in accordance with carefully set rules because she exists, it cannot be called living, in fear of its power to devastate her. That's incredible. That's just fantastic stuff. And you get that a lot in the New York Review of Books. I think there's one other thing. There's a piece on the end of Rome. There's Adam Kirsch does a review of that Chekhov collection of stories that we saw. But there was one other thing. Oh yes, here it is. Leah Price reviews one book that we've seen on this channel, Inky Fingers by Anthony Grafton, and another, When Novels Were Books by Jordan Alexander Stein. We might have seen that too on this channel. And starts off with an incredible tour de force view of the book world in the age of COVID. I'm going to indulge your patience here just a little by reading a bit of it. The pandemic has not spared books. Booksellers responded to shelter-in-place orders by skateboarding packages to curbsides, organizing Instagram reading groups, branding face masks. None of this saved revenues from plummeting. Before the first month of lockdown was over, one survey showed that 80% of independent bookstores had furloughed or laid off workers. Supermarkets and big box stores that remained open cut book orders. Some Walmart branches roped off paperbacks racks as non-essential. Online sales fared better, but not by much. Although the printed books are easier to ship than many commodities, books were e-commerce sites' earliest proof of concept, partly because non-perishable rectangles fit in the mail. Jeff Bezos cast his company as a public utility by ostentatiously prioritizing essential goods such as lentils and hair dye over Amazon's signature product. School closings cut demand for textbooks, along with most parents' time for leisure reading. By early April, bookstore sales were 11% lower than they had been the previous spring. That's not so bad compared to the 50% drop in sales of clothing. The lockdowns that depressed purchasing power also opened up time soon filled by fiction, traditionally consumed by old or female readers, that is, people stuck at home. By April, even literary preppers, stocked with triplicates of Saramago's Blindness, resorted to price-gouging coloring books to stem our children's 24/7 demands for read-alouds. Books categorized as, quote, games, activities, and hobbies sold 25% more, a smaller gain than markers, which spiked 81%. Board books, those chunky hardbacks laminated to protect against drool and more recently wet wipes, sold 30% more in the first full week of April than they had the previous year. And the piece, she just goes on like that. The huge throat clearing before she gets to the books is all about the book industry today, and I find it fascinating. Ordinarily, I have a little bit of a lack of patience with that, especially when you've got a book as great as Anthony Grafton's book to review, but in this case, I didn't mind at all because it was all fascinating. And that's a little that's a detailed walk through the New York Review of Books. And now we'll do the mail. We have a little bit of mail, including we'll start off with an envelope. I don't ordinarily open envelopes. This one's fairly thick, and it's not personal. I don't think it is. So I don't know. If it's not something I can tell you about, I won't. But let's see what we have here. Okay. All right. To Steve Donoghue for conversation with my compliments. Okay. I'm not quite sure what this is. Sure is nice, though. I don't know if this is even for sale. The brand on it here is something called Anathema Hall by D.M. Ross. Just a little chapbook. Very nice little thing. Bright purple and with big observations on every page. It is a matter of control. That is the whole of that. Let's go to another one. Here's 4. Machines are to do for us what we cannot do for ourselves. Rely on a system and risk its failure. Standards are set in order to have certainty. Make the effort to get a proper result. Just 4 statements on one page. Here's another one that just takes up all of both pages. There is nothing but a chance until the end. And this just has compliments from the author and no explanation of any kind, and I'm such a thorough book reviewer that I'm looking for an explanation. This is Anathema Hall, being a commonplace book of D.M. Ross, founder, San Diego, 2020. So I don't know if this commonplace book is available commercially. I'm very happy that D.M. Ross sent it to me. I'll go through it. It has copyright. Do any of you, I don't imagine that it's likely, but do any of you know anything about Anathema Hall? Information should not make you comfortable, it should make you think. Have no fear of being right. Imagination can describe what cannot be understood. The mind of the individual remains in the work. 4 on one page. Okay, I'm gonna have to go through that and ponder it. The other 2 seem slightly more conventional to me. I don't usually get chapbooks in the mail. So here we have a priority mail package. Let's see what this is. Okay. Who publishes this? Delphinium Books. Okay, this is a collection of short stories by Laura Newman. That's an attractive looking thing, isn't it? That comes out in January, so no need to worry about it, and probably, at least we can hope, no worry about it being postponed. This is The Franklin Avenue Rookery for Wayward Babies and Other Stories by Laura Newman. Coming out from Delphinium Books in January. An utterly original short story collection, oh now, oh come now, whose remarkable breadth ranges from Tibet, Sweden, Tijuana, and Lake Tahoe, and in time frames that stretch between hundreds of years. In these 10 stories, the author switches points of view effortlessly, bringing readers to far-flung regions of the world, and has an uncanny, authentic grasp of cultures, traveling from Varanasi to Tijuana, from Rome to Lhasa, to New Orleans, Valdez, Barcelona, and the Isle of Skye. Okay. While these fictions occur thousands of miles apart and evince widely different cultures and situations, they are unified in their portrayal of ordinary citizens of the world struggling against extraordinary events, written with a remarkable mixture of pathos and humor. I like the sound of that. I very much do. I like the look of this too. Okay, well, do I have a price for this? Okay, it looks like this is going to be a $26 hardcover when it comes out in January. Of course, as you know, if you watch this channel, there's no chance that I'm going to read this in 2020. No reading's going to cross over the Terminator into a new year, but at least I'll have this waiting if I come back in 2021. And you can put it on your list if it sounds good. It sounds like one of the selling points, I don't know about the human dimension, but it sounds like one of the selling points is going to be the exotic locations. Never knowing where you're going to end up in any one of these stories. That's a pretty strong selling point. So if that interests you, this is the Franklin Avenue Rookery for Wayward Babies and Other Stories. And then we have this last package, also from a publisher. This feels like a finished copy, so it probably won't be a 2021 release. It probably won't be a chapbook. It probably won't be any of that. It'll probably just be a very normal book. Let's see. No. Okay, all right. This is from the New York Review of Books. Okay, all right. This comes out in late September, so not that far away. It is by the New York Review of Books, but it's a size that I've seldom seen from them. Very nice. Okay, this is Balzac's Lives by Peter Brooks. So there you have the standard New York Review of Books look to it, but a slightly bigger size. They're ordinarily more hand-sized than this. So what have we got here? Honoré de Balzac's interlinked novels, novellas, and short stories, the human comedy, did more than lay bare every facet of post-revolutionary French society: gender, class, social status, bankers, artists, doctors, prostitutes, and politicians, all navigating a new world order. According to Oscar Wilde, and he ought to know, Balzac single-handedly invented not only the 19th century novel, but the 19th century as we know it. The human comedy is peopled with over 2,400 characters appearing in 91 works, each with a carefully considered backstory, each playing an integral part in its astonishingly alive universe. In this new and unprecedented autobiography, the literary scholar Peter Brooks examines the man behind the masterpiece anew. Brooks previously edited the New York Review of Books classic edition of the human comedy, selecting 9 key stories. Here he singles out 9 of Balzac's most extraordinary characters for sustained, spirited analysis. Rather than a straightforward personal history, Balzac's Lives is a vivid and searching study of one of the greatest writers of all time that is based on a close reading of his greatest creations. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so this has some advanced blurbs. Balzac has some blurbs, including one from James Baldwin and one from Baudelaire. Thanks very much. But Peter Brooks also has some blurbs, one from Publishers Weekly. Okay, so what does that mean, brand new? Is this a new publication by the New York Review of Books? I wasn't completely sure they did that. Yeah, this is not a reprint of a classic of any kind. I might have missed such a classic because Balzac, no offense to Brian at Bookish, Balzac has never been quite my cup of tea. It sounds to me like this book might have the potential to change that. That's pretty fascinating. That would be pretty fascinating. I don't know how much Balzac I have here. What if this thing sparks, finally makes the scales drop from my eyes when it comes to loving Balzac? I will have to go hunting for him. I imagine all of this available at Project Gutenberg. Well, what an odd mail haul. So we have a new publication by the New York Review of Books. Not a reprint. It's Peter Brooks examining Balzac's life through the lives of some of his notable characters. Then we have the Franklin Avenue Rookery for Wayward Babies and Other Stories, a collection of short stories due in January, and a chapbook from Anathema Hall, called Anathema Hall by D.M. Ross. A little bit on the odd side. Now that is, and we have the New York Review of Books, and we have Tech Update, and you have your babies. These books, of course, are not the only books I will get today. I will get plenty of ebooks from publishers. A few of you have written an email and asked me about that, about whether or not that's true. And some of the people who have emailed about that asking have also wondered if maybe I could do some sort of electronic mail haul I haven't really done that. So, you know, in other words, to keep up with the mail, only electronically, the EPUB, the ebooks that I get. I'll have to think about that. That might be interesting to do. I'm not quite sure how I would handle publicity material if that were the case. Maybe I could call it up on a separate computer and read it to you, and then at least you'd be aware of what's coming out. But one way or another, this has gone on for an ungodly length of time, as MegaStuff videos tend to do. So I'm going to wrap this up. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.